is being sent to
It, yeah, it says it's still preparing to live.
That's okay. That's fair warning.
Good afternoon or morning, depending on where you are. I'm Carlo Bertolini with Kale. Thanks for attending this virtual workshop, which is entitled Achieving Equitable Pathways Through Infrastructure and Workforce Developments. As a reminder, attendees are muted, but please introduce yourselves and meet fellow attendees via the chat function at the virtual hub, which is a website you use when you virtually access the conference. You can also enter questions for the speakers there during our session. And as a reminder, there's an evaluation attached, which we'd appreciate if you could complete. And with that, I'd like to welcome Laura Heller, Senior Director of Initiatives here at Kale, to start things off.
Great. Thank you, Carlo. And thank you, virtual Kale attendees. Laura here with Kale. Thank you for joining our session. As you can see, there's some of us in person here at the Kale conference. Ryan is as well. So we're very happy to be joining you today. We'll start with our introductions. I'll go first and then pass it to the ladies in this room, and then we'll go to Ryan. But again, yeah, Laura, Senior Director on the Workforce and Economic Development side, been with Kale for about 3 years right now, and have worked closely with everyone on this meeting today with initiatives in their area. I'm looking forward to talking more about what we all do together, and I will pass it to Shana.
Hello, I am Shana Peshik. I'm the Executive Director of the Machinist Institute.
Good morning, everyone, or maybe good afternoon, where you're from. My name is Carrie Pierce, and I'm the Workforce Innovation Sector Lead at the Washington State Department of Commerce.
Wonderful.
And I'm Ryan Davis, and I serve as the Executive Director of Seattle Jobs Initiative, a proud partner of Kale, the Machinist Institute, and our friends at the State Department of Commerce.
Wonderful. All right. We'll start with some information on Machinist Institute.
Yeah, so the Machinist Institute is a nonprofit. We were created by the International Association of Machinists 751 in Seattle, Washington, to really offer educational programs across the workforce spectrum. So bridging down to K-12, pre-apprenticeship, registered apprenticeship, and continued education and upskilling. They represent about 33 members in Boeing, so that was also a priority, is really giving those members all of the skills and education they need to advance in their careers. These are our keys to success. We really wanted to build our programs based on a foundation of equity and access. I had supported the building trades prior to this role, and spent most of that time on recruiting and retaining women in the trades, historically excluded communities, efforts like that. And so really wanted to include those same efforts in this role. We were one of the first programs to hire a full-time student services specialist that can really go in and be a trusted contact for our students when they're having challenges with either academically or transportation, things like that, and then rely on our partners to do those wraparound services if there's things that we cannot provide. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. And also, I take no credit for the animations or the cool stuff that these slides do.
They're cool.
We have a great marketing person. And so our foundational program is about a 12-week pre-apprenticeship career accelerator that feeds into our registered apprenticeship programs. They're listed on the right. We have 5 of them currently. Because our sector is not a traditional dispatch for apprenticeship, it is employer hire, and then they send us the students. So getting the direct entry into the employers and getting them hired is one of the pathways. Sometimes then it takes a while for them to become an apprentice. And community college. So we want to offer all of the options for students that fit them at the time in their life and what their interests are. We have 2 40-foot mobile training trailers to get into the rural areas and provide access to communities that don't have, they're not located near any training center and would not otherwise be able to attend these. We have 4 training centers now in Washington State. We have programs in Oregon and California. We work closely with community-based organizations to recruit and support students in our programs. And because childcare in the building trades I had worked on with Carrie for decades, I think. And, you know, the shift, the non-standard hour shift challenge is a real barrier. And so with a lot of resources that you'll get the link to, in all of the different ways that you can support childcare capacity. We also are opening a childcare center to be open on standard hours. And of course, I want apprenticeship for the childcare workers in that center. Here's briefly some of our demographics. Numbers of students that we have served, doubled our apprenticeship programs. One of our premier projects with Kale is that we were able to use their expertise to map our machinist apprenticeship program with Renton Technical College in Washington State, so that our machinists get an AA at the same time as they journey out. They do not need to go to a college and take any additional classes. It's automatic when they finish their apprenticeship program, which took us about 2 years and was a really amazing outcome and project.
Definitely.
Okay, Ryan.
Yeah, we'll pass it over to Seattle Jobs Initiative, and Ryan, let me know what you want me to advance the slides and we'll move them along.
Awesome, good deal. So if you have not heard of Seattle Jobs Initiative, we're a nonprofit located, not surprisingly, in Seattle, Washington, but we do have national reach. Our local work really consists of being able to support low-income adults. That is our laser focus on population that we're serving. And our model for doing that is that we partner with BIPOC-led community-based organizations that are trusted messengers in their communities. And we add value by providing things like career navigation. We connect people to on-ramp skills training, like the pre-apprenticeship with the machinist. We do a lot of work in digital equity. We gave away over 2,000 laptops to low-income job seekers during COVID. And then those wraparound supports that are just so essential that Shana was speaking about. We also work, within our region where we do a lot of convening, particularly of our industry partners. We really like to bring together folks together in sector industry tables. We create learning communities as we're trying to address problems that are region wide, and then work to really be able to develop those actionable career pathways where people can move up into a career that is both economically rewarding as well as personally rewarding. And then finally, we do share what we learn at the local level nationally. We're most known for our expertise in SNAP employment and training. We're proud to partner with Kale on a USDA FNS grant to expand the capabilities of colleges and universities to tap into that funding stream to support their students. But we also have a policy research shop, and we do student and people-centered design work as well. So on the digging a little bit deeper to who we serve, and this is the same alignment with the values of equity that the Machinist Institute has, as well as the state of Washington has articulated in their equity plan. So our focus again is low-income individuals seeking careers. And we really want those career pathways to be actionable, not just something that's on a whiteboard, but we actually see people's ability to be able to move up, which is why we love our partnership with the Machinist, because we know that employers are involved, they're at the table, and the individuals are going to be able to go from that pre-apprenticeship program either into employment, registered apprenticeship, or with our community college partners. But our participants really face housing is super expensive in Seattle. Even though our minimum wage next year in the city of Seattle is going to creep over $20 an hour, the cost of housing really eats into those wages. So housing instability is a huge barrier our folks face. Food insecurity, lack of access, if you can even find childcare, much less affordable childcare, transportation issues, and then digital equity barriers. So being able to access quality high-speed internet and being able to have a device that you're able to do professional work on are all barriers that we try to break down for our participants. So our core services, we do career navigation and case management. So that career navigation part is really helping people, show people all the different career pathways that we have. So we have partnerships in healthcare and maritime and manufacturing and construction and information technology, lots of different pathways. We also have partners with organizations that work in culinary and hospitality, and other services as well. So we're all about finding what individuals are interested in in. And if they're interested in an SGI pathway, great. If not, we can connect them over to other amazing organizations. And then we're able to help assist them with getting the benefits that they're entitled to. So whether those are food assisted benefits, local state benefits that people are able to be provided for, free transportation cards, all of those things, we want to make sure that people are enrolled in all those benefits. And then we really focus on delivery of those wraparound services. And some of those that we do internally that we're able to fund, others we may refer out, such as from our partnerships with public housing or childcare providers to be able to meet those needs. Because without these key essential things, individuals are not going to be successful in work, they're not going to be successful in learning, and they're not going to be successful in a registered apprenticeship. And I do want to talk a little bit about the importance of pre-apprenticeship, because I think, of these kind of three outcomes, I think we all tend to focus on the one on the right. The pre-apprenticeship is going to give people those technical skills, that are needed in order to be successful. And those technical skills are really, really important. But it's also important to be able to try before you buy. Pre-apprenticeship can be a great way for individuals to explore, and it is an okay outcome for someone to say, this is not a career for me. Pre-apprenticeship participants are going to walk away with some skills, likely some industry credentials that are portable and might be able to be used in different sectors. And it's going to help people to be able to hone down what their interests actually are. Maybe I don't really like the loud environment of the machine shop, but I really like working with the technology during the pre-apprenticeship program. So I'm going to explore that career in information technology. And that's where the equity component comes in. I think oftentimes we overlook the fact that being able to have career exploration opportunities is often due to positions of privilege. That through our social networks that we have, if our parents went to college, if our parents are professionals in different fields, they're able to provide those opportunities. Better funded high schools are able to provide those opportunities, but many individuals that we serve never had the opportunity to explore different careers. So being able to provide pre-apprenticeship opportunities, whether or not somebody goes into that field, is demanded by our commitment to equity. And when we allow people to explore those careers, they're going to find where they belong in the workforce ecosystem. They're going to find a career that's rewarding, that's going to provide that financial stability as well as that rewarding sense that we all get from our jobs and careers. So as we're building our ecosystem to be able to support the machinist and all the great infrastructure work that's coming into our region, we view our role as really supporting those learners that are the most key and are most essential to be able to getting into the workforce and being successful. Laura, back to you.
Great. I know you just touched on.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I had one slide. So
yeah.
So this was, just kind of sharing our partnership with the Machinist Institute. We are doing, again, that career navigation, getting folks into the program, the wraparound support, partnering and supporting other CBOs. And then the machinists do what they do best, which is provide that skills training that are connected to the jobs that are there and leading into those actionable career pathways. And now, Laura, back to you.
That's wonderful, Ryan. So I hope actually most of you that are joining us virtually are aware of CALE, the Council for Adult and Experiential Learning. Again, it's our 50th annual conference. And just a little bit more about us is it's really helping to navigate linking learning and work. Where are the on-ramps, the next steps for those career progressions, and how can education and training feed into that? What are workforce resources like Ryan and his team can offer to that? Working with Machinist Institute with employers and active apprentices, Department of Commerce of working where are the resources that come in, and how do you help stitch all that part of the ecosystem like Ryan mentioned and put that together, and where can CALE as a national nonprofit help fill those gaps, help bridge the partnerships, and be an expert in the room to just amplify, maximize what you guys are already doing. So we work all over the nation. If you are not aware, CALE is also a membership organization. So we have over 4,800 members across 50 states. And we are, very much like the conference of that you are all attending virtually, some are in person. we are, learning together about what are these best practices and what does that look like. Being a member also gives you access to a hub. So it's almost a Kale conference on the go the rest of the time of the year when we're not able to actively come together. So it's, able to reach across the table constantly, wherever you are seated anywhere in the nation, and tap someone on the shoulder and say, hey, you're like me. Do you know how to do this? Or new people and say, hey, I'm trying to do this with credit for prior learning. Has anyone ever done this? It's really a great hub and access for that. And also being a member, you get a wonderful discount to attend our conference in person. Our conference will be in Memphis next year. So if you did not know we're a membership organization, wanted to make sure you did know, please reach out to us if you're looking for more information on what that looks like. But yeah, thank you again for joining us here at the Kale Conference, and I'll pass it over to Carrie to tell us more.
All right, so full disclosure, the application for this workshop was submitted prior to my arrival at the Washington State Department of Commerce. So I have worked for the Department of Commerce since February 2024, and prior to that, I worked for the Washington State Labor Council, AFL-CIO, for almost 34 years. But I'm really only 32 years old.
Yeah,
so
she
you
started
you
when she was
figure out the- So no surprise that our State Department of Commerce is highly focused on economic development, right? And back in our 2022 legislative session, that brought legislation brought sort of workforce development into the conversation at Commerce. So go ahead.
Yeah.
That. So part of that legislation established our manufacturing council. We have 8 business leaders on that council and 8 labor leaders on that council. The goal is to double manufacturing in over 10 years. I don't know if we're going to make that, but it's not going to be because of not all the hard work that our group is doing, but because of external things like, I don't know, pandemics and energy costs and stuff. So I'm going to blame it on somebody else if we don't make that mark, basically. So in creating those opportunities for business and labor partnerships, we're having conversations, of course, around manufacturing, but those partnerships go farther and deeper into other spaces that I think are essential that I may not be a part of, but because they have built those relationships in a sort of confidential and creative space, a safe space, that those conversations can continue outside of just manufacturing and commerce. Recently, we are looking at, we got some legislative funds to look at women and people of color owned businesses in manufacturing, what that looks like now, what are those barriers that have been present, what were barriers that we could eliminate, like what can we solve, but we need to go to the community that we're trying to impact and ask those questions. And then finally, if one more person on this committee or council tells me that the problem in manufacturing is shop classes are not in the high schools, I will lose my marbles. So I am actually now in the process of sort of going, no, actually there are lots of factors why people are in these manufacturing jobs, but here's some awareness of what that educational pipeline looks like. And it starts in our high schools with career and technical education and moves forward. All right. So again, workforce development is new to the conversation in commerce and economic development. And like I said prior, in my work, the 34 years with the State Labor Council, I bring those relationships in all of these areas. I could probably name 10 amazing people in each thing that I've partnered with. And so we're all excited to sort of like start to have these conversations and bring these communities together.
All right, so we got through our introductions, a little bit about each one of us. And we're unique in our own way, but we're always looking for ways to collaborate and what that looks like. So I'm just gonna, do this funnel down approach of just going again, what are the ingredients for a workforce ecosystem, just to make sure we've got the right partners at the table, and then we'll go through some solutions and themes that occur. And we definitely want you to start dropping in any questions that you have that we can help answer to, because we know it's a lot of information. It's the alphabet soup when you start saying workforce development and pathways and infrastructure and what does this all mean and what does it mean for me, because it looks different in every single area. But the key ingredients in a healthy workforce ecosystem, and this is if it's working correctly and working appropriately, but you want to be thinking about all the different partners. So labor market's a great thing to be mindful of. What's your data? What are those resources? And making sure that it's coming from a valid resource. That always just points you in the right direction of what you're looking to do. You know, Shayna will have a great idea, but where does it start and how do you get other people on the bus? It's great to have some data to start with that. Like, hey, did you know that this survey of apprentices says that yes, it will build a diverse pipeline of equitable resources to getting an associate's degree. And then you can start that conversation. But promoting and amplifying career awareness, where are the in-demand jobs? What are those in-demand occupations and industries in your area? So always knowing what your employer engagement is, what that's looking like, and engaging employers, making sure you have those good relationships and partnerships, not just calling someone, you know, once a quarter when you need them at a meeting, making sure that you're meeting with them and building a real relationship. What are their needs? What does that look like? And you want to be supporting, you know, at Cal we say learners, but there's job seekers, job earners, learners and earners, wherever you sit. It's the customer we're serving and the resources that we're providing them. All the pieces in the ecosystem play together to make sure that if it's working right, you have a seamless process of someone going into a job center, into Machinist Institute, going to Seattle Jobs Initiative, and having a seamless process of getting the resource, being assessed, seeing the resources that they need, and getting connected to a family sustaining career. Now that sounds very, you know, quick and simple of A, B to C. It doesn't always work like that. There's a lot that happens in the background of the plumbing that we're all putting together to make sure that this works. But it's really about supporting the learners and making sure that they have everything that they need. Ryan mentioned about barriers that can occur, transportation, there can be digital literacy issues, making sure that you are as responsive as possible so that people coming to your door, there is no wrong door. They can get the resources that they need to get to that next step. And then it creates that workforce resilience. You want to make sure you're aligning systems. So Shayna mentioned even just talking about how we worked with the Machinist Institute, Cale, and Renton Technical College to crosswalk an apprenticeship to an associate's degree. That took 50 plus meetings of us doing that and aligning those systems to make sure that it work. It does take hard work. It's not impossible, but it is always making sure that everyone is aligned. And there's power in partnerships. The more partners that you have at the table, it can be, you know, causing a headache, but you can get good things done together and to have those conversations. And then to do that, when you've got those partners at the table, achieve scale, start replicating and scaling it. Like we said before, it looks different in every state, in every county, in every local area, every region across the country. So we know, I'm sure some of you have like specific questions of what it looks like in your area or a problem you're trying to solve in the workforce ecosystem. But these are the components to put together of how this can work and bridge those gaps. And the partners we're joined with today are doing it very well together. And so that's why we wanted to make sure we shared their resources and expertise and successes that they're all doing together. But wanted to start at that 30,000 foot approach of, you know, what's in a workforce ecosystem? What does a traditional workforce ecosystem look like? We've mentioned the typical partners. If you're working with economic development, employers, you're working with post-secondary and training, you're working with funders, fully philanthropic, and your workforce intermediaries and resources and providers. So now I think this is pretty much our last slide that you'll be seeing for us, but this brings us to our conversation of just talking through things that we've seen that we want to share with all of you. So feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat. This is very conversational. I know we can't see you, you can see us, but we're very friendly and happy to answer any questions we can to help guide. And after this slide, we do have our contact information. So we'll make sure that you guys have access to our email addresses if you want to reach out and what that looks like. But I'll pass it to the team. I think it was you to start talking about career exploration and training.
Yeah, and at some point I'm gonna have to like record Ryan talking about the value of
He
career
did good,
apprenticeship as
right?
an
Yeah.
ad for us and get some
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
Because you know, a lot of funders want just employment numbers, and really
Yes.
that is a space for so much more and so many more successes out
Yes.
of those programs. So I want to start with talking about the infrastructure and all of the funding that comes out under kind of that heading. What we saw back when it was ARA funding was that green jobs was really the big, you know, ticket thing that everybody in workforce was working on under that funding, without understanding that a carpenter is a green job. This isn't a new job created by new materials that are more sustainable. It's the same skill set of the person who's actually using that material. There might be some additional like training around a new material. So like sustainable aviation fuel is a big one in our state right now. They're still going to need machinists and machine mechanics and operators, all of the things that comes into the manufacturing of a product. So making sure that when you start and fund these training programs, that you understand exactly what it is that you're talking about, as far as the, you know, the number of jobs in the occupation. We see a lot of times in Washington State, people come in wanting to do solar and EV new jobs, new trainings for those. But in our state, you have to be a licensed electrician to do solar. So the job is there, it's the electrician. We might need more of them, or we might need some different kind of training added into their curriculum. But just being very clear on that so that you don't create jobs that do not, or training that lead to jobs that aren't really there. I know we also had a program that created weatherization techs, or
Yeah, there were
Mhm.
weather station techs.
Yeah.
yes, Yeah.
and a lot of people went through those training programs when the actual number needed for those jobs was a very small,
Oh.
a handful of jobs for that. So, you know, want to make it very aligned with what really the industry needs are and what those specific occupations are when we're talking about infrastructure, climate, green economy jobs. So
Yeah,
that's
and Shannon, can I jump in there real quick
Yeah.
on that too? Yeah, I was gonna say, I think a lot of people, they don't, a lot of people want jobs that are positively impacting their community and want to be seen as part of the solution of that climate crisis, but they don't necessarily think about, like, for example, the machinist occupation supporting our bus fleet, right? So public transit is a huge way to be able to lower carbon emissions, and we're making huge investments in our area. But sometimes that's where that career navigation can come in. And again, like you said, it's not a new job, right? We've always had people maintaining buses and fleets and all those things, but as we're expanding that transit component, and we did some amazing videos, sharing how technology is used in that, how those jobs can be really rewarding. And I think having those conversations with folks to for job seekers as well as the funders, to help them understand that those pathways are part of that green solution, even though those occupations have been around, is just really key.
Thanks, Ryan.
Really
So,
articulate.
one of the things under the Machinist Institute is that we serve several industry sectors.
Yep.
So,
Mhm.
people see Machinist Institute, and that's our heritage. However, under that, in that kind of spectrum, it's the maritime industry. We have machinists, welders, engine repair, mechanics. We have the supply chain. So all of those shipping containers that keep products cold they have generators, they have electrical, refrigeration. So there's mechanics for those. We have the advanced manufacturing, aerospace. So there's really quite a few different sector areas that our education feeds into. So our original pre-apprenticeship is focused mostly on manufacturing, along with those essential skills like the financial literacy, health and wellness, suicide awareness, communication, things like that. And then we just added another path to that for welding. So we ran out of space in our first training center for our welding booths. But there's a long-standing building trades pre-apprenticeship called a new in our state that really focuses on the same equitable pathways that the Machinist Institute does, and they had space. So we put our welding booths co-located at a new, and now that welding pre-apprenticeship will have students that are interested in the building trade, students interested in manufacturing, use that welding skill set as a launch point into multiple sectors. Maritime needs welders, building trades, and manufacturing. And so what a beautiful kind of partnership that gives students really such a vast opportunity to explore and find what will fit for them. And that's just another way of really expanding opportunities for people so that they're not spending their time and
Yeah.
money. We're not spending our time and money on occupations they're going to leave 6 months later because they didn't know what it was. And Carrie's going to take this next piece, but under that,
But we have to, are there?
There's some
there's
questions.
questions
Oh,
first.
No, you're good. No, this
Okay.
is good. Yeah,
They
if
don't
you're all
wanna-
right with that. No, this is conversational. This is
Yeah.
good. So no, you were talking about the building trade. So we have a question about unions. Do you have unions that you deal with? And then do you do partnership with other organizations? So I would say yes and yes. And if you have a more specific question on working with the unions, please feel free to drop that in. We'd like to all talk for that. But if you want to talk about unions you work with, yeah.
And so we were created by a union, the IAM 751. We work with their districts all over basically the country. We've gone West Coast, but we really are wanting to have this opportunity across the country, make the machinists like the electricians and stuff. We also cross partner with other unions like sheet metal who do fabrication. So there's some crossover when you're talking about manufacturing into some of the building trades that you wouldn't necessarily think of. So we do those partnerships. What was the other? There was another piece of that.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, the other organizations.
Yeah.
So we partner heavily with the K-12 system and the
Yeah.
community college system, but also community-based organizations that
Mhm.
we bring into our space and have them design the program. So like a CBO that serves the refugee and immigrant community in Seattle, they helped us design it that allowed time for prayer. Had culturally relevant food choices, and when we were had funding to give stipends, they made it clear that how we did it and when we did it could potentially have the other rest of the family ineligible for assistance they were receiving. So we had to be very creative with how we supported them with those wraparound services. So we didn't unintentionally cause harm. That if we just took our program and said, here it is, send
Right.
us your students, we would have had some real big missteps. So yes, lots of partnerships. That's really the key to the success.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And yeah, my relationship with labor,
Yeah.
just as an anecdote, I worked for the Washington State Labor Council, AFL-CIO, prior to my position. And I was asked recently, what are all the labor unions that I'd worked with in the last year? And I was like, here's the directory, like, like all of them, all 600,000 members I worked with.
Right.
So yes. So on infrastructure, so in the state of Washington, Commerce has been sort of tasked with assisting applicants for those large federal grants, right? The CHIPS Act stuff, science stuff, the NSF grants, et cetera. And prior to my arrival, they were filling in all the pieces, and not knowing what to do with the EDA question around workforce development, right? I mean, it was really just a paragraph, we'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
And since my coming on board, we're like, what problem are you wanting to solve with this? And let me get you, like, let's write something up and
Yeah.
let me get you in like significant partnership so that that can happen, right? So if it's, what was it? The CHIPS one was around R&D, right? That question of workforce is different, right? You're probably going to want to upskill some curriculum development, right? Which is different than what you're wanting to do with the NSF grant and actually getting folks into that talent pipeline. So needing to understand what the problem is to solve, and then be very transparent in bringing those partners together. And I am literally just starting to do this work, but it's starting to pay off. Like, you know, our applications, the NSF grant that we submitted, there were many from the state of Washington, and Commerce was the one that got that grant. And I want to say it's because they took workforce development component more serious than they had in the past. So, and you just did a thing.
Which thing?
This
Yeah.
climate jobs initiative
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So,
You did a thing.
to sound like, what did I just do?
No, you.
So there is a link in here to the International Association of Machinists. Just with, was it Carnegie? The came out with this report. And so we provided that. But it is really talking about how the climate agenda
Our volume dropped. a lot.
and the machinists as solutions working together, that calls out Machinist Institute and workforce development and apprenticeship utilization. So some of those key components are in that report. So just for your reading pleasure, have provided that as well.
Carla, if you don't mind going in the chat, how's the volume now? I'm just curious if it's like an internet thing.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Oh, I just saw in the chat, our volume dropped a lot.
Yeah, now it sounds better.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's probably we were laughing and then it adjusted. It's good. Sorry.
Well,
Okay, good.
that's terrifying.
All right, Ryan, I think this next one's you.
Sustainability and resources.
Yeah. So
Before you do that though, Ryan,
Yeah.
I do want to call out and sort of like in all of this, the partnership that may not make sense, but A, we're friends, but B, for example, our manufacturing council, as part of that study, is like partnering with SJI because of their expertise in the communities that we're trying to ask the question of, right?
Yeah.
So it goes, I guess it goes back to the sustainability and resources question. Sorry, that's the lead in, right?
Nice.
Basically,
Yeah.
is that like there is cross-pollination in the problem solving.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things, in terms of as these infrastructure investments come in, it's going to be really important to kind of weave and braid together a lot of the other resources that are already there. So, to be very blunt, the WIOA system, for example, is way underfunded. There's not enough money there to really support. I mean, by the time, especially in an expensive area like Seattle, King County, or really anywhere on the west coast of Washington, by the time they do all the required elements, there's just not a whole lot of excess resources there. But in Washington State, we have a couple cool things that we do really well. So one is we have what's called the Washington College Grant, that is a stream of funding that doesn't only just support going to college or university, it also supports registered apprentices. So they can get actual financial aid from the state. It is a first dollar in program, so it stacks with Pell Grants or other financial assistance you might receive. And so that's going to be something important to leverage as we're really trying to build up those resources. We're also really good at using SNAP employment and training for those that are on food assistance. That is a federal program, if you're not aware, that provides a 50% reimbursement to organizations that are providing workforce services to those receiving food assistance. So that is an unlimited entitlement that can be tapped into to be able to serve those that are most vulnerable in our communities. It is particularly useful in working with immigrant and refugee communities because often during resettlement, they're eligible for SNAP resources, and that is just an amazing talent pool full of stars that we need to be bringing into our workforce system. But as we built this partnership and ecosystem, I think one of the things is that there's no egos at the table about who's leading for funding. And building those resources. Sometimes it's like, Shana, I think you're the better lead on this. And sometimes Shana goes, hey, Ryan, you guys are the better lead on this. Or, oh, our partners at the colleges are better lead on this. Or, Carrie, we need the state to weigh in to be able to help this. So as we built this ecosystem to be able to support all these investments that are coming in, it's all about finding those partners. And if you have that functional ecosystem and that model that Laura was sharing out, you're going to be able to do that braiding that funding together, and then we're going to be able to not just provide those investments to support things in the short term, but really be able to look at the long-term sustainability.
And I know when you braid and do all that, just what's exciting, because I was operating programs similar, but in a different part of the country like this. When you do that, it's really a one-stop shop where you're not enrolling someone because they meet a grant outcome or a funding outcome. It's really, you're serving the individual and they have access to all the resources they need. They're not like, you're getting enrolled into SNAP into this program and you need to do X, Y, Z. It's like, no, we've assessed this is what you need. And you're checking off multiple funding sources while serving the individual holistically.
I
Yes.
think it's also important to, when you are looking at funding, to understand what programs are out there that do great
Yes.
work, so that
Mhm.
you're not
Mhm.
repeating
Yep.
something that already
Yeah.
exists, but you're funding
Yes.
those that do it well, and need that funding. We've mentored several community-based organizations to take lead on grant writing, so I don't
Mhm.
need to be the lead on the funds. I would
Yeah.
rather just be their partner for the training
Yep.
and stuff. So helping these smaller nonprofits learn how to access these funds also is a big part of it.
Mhm.
I do want to say, like, on the forward-looking part of it, one of the impacts, I mean, there's lots of them, but one of the things across any infrastructure discussion, CHIPS Act actually called it out, is that childcare is an infrastructure. It is infrastructure. We cannot have enough people building the bridges and doing the construction needed or manufacturing without addressing childcare.
Mhm.
Healthcare, construction, building trades, manufacturing, all have shifts. There's lots of other ones too, but those three sectors in Washington State make up the highest percent of workforce. And so looking at the childcare solutions across all of these has to be part of the discussion. I put a link
Mhm.
in that goes to our website. On the website is a childcare guide that is useful for talking to employers. Most of the people that we surveyed said that they want employers to be part of that solution. So how do you talk to employers? There's lots of ideas in there. We're opening a childcare center, which has been terrifying, but also it's much needed. And legislators can also make an impact as far as extending the amount of time that individuals can stay on subsidized childcare after being employed. They did that for registered apprenticeship, subsidizing childcare providers to be open the non-standard hours, because that's extremely expensive. And then we always have to get to the affordability discussion. But that's just a common theme across all, and looking forward to something that continues to be addressed.
Oh, well, yeah, the chat. Good. Oh, yeah, an entire session on your work with childcare and childcare apprenticeships. My institution is just getting started with childcare apprenticeships, so it's very interesting. Yes, that is huge. And there's actually been a couple sessions here at the Kale conference. I know we're
Mhm.
uploading recordings and PowerPoints, but actually, I'll if we're good, I'm gonna make sure everyone sees it. I'm gonna go to the next slide so you have Shayna's contact information because of what she's trying to do.
And I have
Yeah.
done that
Yeah.
exact presentation
Yes.
for other organizations, so
Yeah.
happy to.
Yeah, I want to make sure you get this
Yeah,
contact.
10 years
Yeah.
ago,
Yeah.
Shayna and I were sitting in a room going, man, we're getting tired of hearing about the childcare thing. Let's solve this. We literally, I think, thought well, we're moms, we can solve it in a year. No, that is not the case, everyone. We have very good ideas, and if everybody just implement them, it'd be great.
Well, and it actually started with a project from that I was on with Matt Waltz from
Yeah,
Yale,
yeah.
who was a mentor trying to remove barriers for apprentices.
Yeah.
And when everybody was throwing money at the problem, like it's just the cost of childcare
Yes.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
And then when we started asking apprentices and journey workers, that was like, yeah, we'd love to get, it subsidized, but I can't find it.
Yeah.
Like there is nowhere for me to
You
put
can't
my
get the
child
hours.
in, for the hours that I'm working and stuff. So that really, that's why we couldn't solve it in a
That's
year.
right.
It was like-
We have to solve the hour problem.
Yeah.
I will also give a shout out to Tracy Carey at Midwest Urban Strategies. They've done some amazing work with childcare apprenticeship in St. Louis, in Virginia, in some other places, and they have some DOL technical assistance support to help folks be able to get those programs off the ground. They're also a proud Kale partner as well. So, and she did a great presentation in person. So her slides, I'm sure, will be available on the app for those that are not here in lovely New Orleans for Halloween.
Yeah, it was important, to start to look at childcare solutions for the folks that needed the work, but also to do no harm
Yes.
to the providers that are providing that resource. And then also, how do we uplift them so that they can make money to sustain their
Yeah.
families and
Yes.
have the hours that they need for that work-life balance as well.
Yes.
No, it's good. And I just saw the comment, will the PowerPoint be uploaded? Yes, in true workforce fashion. I think we were still piecing it together yesterday. So yes, thank you. I will make sure to get, Laura, I will get that uploaded into the app today or tomorrow. I know we're running a bit. But yeah, for sure. Any other questions we're thinking of? Other comments, thoughts? Oh,
Hey.
thank you. Thanks, Rebecca.
We
Yeah,
love Rebecca.
yeah. This is such an awesome
Rebecca, you want to do
Yeah.
workshop with us next time?
Yeah, gotta be on this side. This will be good. Yeah, we were so excited to get to this with all of you. Actually, this was a great idea of us getting into a room and having this all be here. But we hope to have you in person next time with us at the Kale Conference in Memphis. And I know we got a keynote coming up over the lunchtime, so hopefully you're able to join that session. And we'll make sure to upload the PowerPoint. And then feel free to reach out to us. As you can tell, these are experts in the space that have been doing this and pioneering it. And always good for a good conversation, brainstorm, think tank of what can be done next.
Yeah, if you got a really good, cool idea,
Yeah,
I want to hear it. Like,
Yeah.
let's make some magic happen.
definitely.
I'm up.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, I'll pass it back
All
to
right.
you.
Thanks,
Rebecca.
everyone.
Yes, thanks everyone for attending. And as a reminder, this recording should be available for 90 days here on the platform. And if you get a chance to complete the survey, we'd appreciate it. So thanks again to our presenters and for all our attendees.
Yeah. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.